Welcome back to another video where I go over some more changes and improvements that we did in version 26. Today I'm going to talk about the details of the contextual menu. First, we're starting off in version 25, and I'm going to go over here to this wall and then right click my mouse, and we see the contextual menu here. These are all the functions that were available in version 25 for the wall. Same if I right click on a window, we get a much smaller window with the functions that are available to us for a window. We've had a lot of requests in recent years to include a lot more contextual menus or a lot more items into the contextual menu. So why did we add more context menus or look into improving our contextual menus in Dietrich? For the most part, our users have had great experience with contextual menus. Also, we can customize contextual menus in such a way that you only see the functions that make sense in any given situation to be had. Same with the menu up here. Quite frequently we have icons that may not actually make sense or that we don't need in this case. And so we can reduce those kind of resources on the screen. Lastly, we're also dealing with monitors that are getting bigger and bigger. And let's say we're working on something down here. If we have to go back up here to the menu and then back down, we just are crossing a lot of real estate on our screens with a mouse. And so if we can keep it more localized, where we only find the functions that we need down here as we work down here, we can improve the time that it takes us that we're spending on the screen for any kind of input or creation processes. One thing to note right away is that the new contextual menus are for the subscription model of version 26. So first off, I'm going to change over to version 26 right now, and then we can have a look at the contextual menus and what has all changed in there. So here we are in version 26. So let's move over to this window again. I'm going to just hover over it and you can see that it's being selected. Now I right click and we open our contextual menu. Right away you can see that there are two groups here. The first group has to do with editing this window specifically, and the next one is with creating a new window. Furthermore, one of the things that I'm going to point out is that we've added these little icons here to distinguish what those specific functions are, and you'll see that shortly how that will help us. The first group is always there to edit this specific item that we're on, and the next one is to create more of this, in this case, more windows. Another thing that we can notice here is that we have this little triangle, and if I hover over it, we can now see all of our favorite items. The first one always is the standard one. In this case, it's a rectangular window. And below it, we see the other specific favorited windows. I'm going to click out of this. Now let's have a look at a context menu of a wall. I'm going to hover over this wall here and right click. You'll notice right away that there's much more subgroups that we find in here. The first one again is the edit group, which relates to the wall that we clicked on. We can see that we can do all kinds of joins, separate the wall. We can also move the wall, modify the wall itself, and then go into edit building part down here as well. The next group over, we can edit the properties or the property name of this wall, even the heights, attributes, and the numbering of this wall. Then the next group again is create. And since we're in the contextual menu of a wall, this is all related to creating a new wall. And then one thing that is also related to that would be to create an opening. If I only have walls and I don't already have any windows, I can't right click on the window to create another window. And so this is the location where I can create doors and windows in a new wall. The last submenu is related to the wall construction guideline. We have the auto wall function in here. We can also create and manipulate elements as well. So how do we exit out of this if, let's say, we came into this contextual menu, but we don't actually want to be in here? The simplest way is to simply right click again and it will close. Another way, so let me go back into the contextual menu. Another way is to actually just go outside of the menu and then left click and it will close up. Let's change into our area roof and then have a look at the contextual menu there. So let's go to the contour of the building. I'm just going to hover on it again, and you can see that the building contour is now in fat. You can also see that the line that I'm on specifically is in a magenta color. I'm going to right click on it and you'll see right away that there's two subgroups here. The first one is specifically relating to this line and all of its functions. So we've got building side, we can also access the profile. We can also move that line and manipulate that line. The second one is now relating to the entire building outline and the functions that come along with that. I'm going to change back to the floor plan now, and I'm going to show you another type of contextual menu, which is the list of the last used commands. In order for me to illustrate the other type of contextual menu, I'm going to first go up here and move this line. Just going to move it down a foot. Then I'm going to use the plus sign. I can choose that now and move this item over 1 foot. So that's exactly as it's been before. One more contextual menu type that I want to show you here is if I hit the spacebar, I can now see all my last commands that I've used. And we've now added these little icons to them here, which makes it easier to detect what we've actually done in the past. One thing to point out here is that I've used the delete function twice, and you can actually see that those are two different types of deletes because the icon is different. Here you can see that I deleted a door, and up here I deleted a line, and you can now easily see that. Also, even though I moved 2 lines, we only have 1 move command in here, and that's because we now combine all the different commands that are the same under 1 line item so that you don't just fill up your list with all the same command. You can also see that there are these little help windows now that explain a lot more in detail what these commands are. So here you can see delete doors. Up here it's delete, and I deleted a line or an object. And then one last thing that we've also added, which makes it work even faster, is if I want to recall that same list of the items that I've just done, I can simply click the right mouse button. I'm going to hold it and then slightly pull downwards. And now you can see that equal sign, those 2 lines right there. I let go of that mouse. And now you can see the list of the last used commands. This makes it a lot faster to use. I just right click, pull down, let go of it. I can see that, I can choose that, and yeah, there we go. Much faster to use and all from the mouse. So one more context menu that I want to show you is the basic one. So I don't have any items selected here right now, and I'm just going to simply right click. You can now see that I'm in the basic contextual menu here. I find measure, refresh global, OpenGL, and so forth. I can also go on to edit and I find story in here, for instance, especially since I don't have anything to click on when choosing the story. So that's where you find that. But I can also change room attributes and so on and so forth. The next one over is create, and I can create walls and chimney stairwells as well. This is really because when you don't have anything in your model yet, those are the first things that you're going to create. I can also jump into the story right here. One more thing to show you in the basic menu here is that we have another function in here. You can see that there is draw, and this is now how I can access all my accessory drawings in order to create the building. I can now measure in here, do different layers, draw lines, circles, and so on. I can also find my dimensions in here and create texts. So let's say I'm going to create an accessory line to create something else. I'm going to just create a line right here, right click out of it. If I go and right click back into the contextual menu, you'll see that I actually stayed in the drawing function in here. And that's so that you can really effectively keep in this mode, in this stage of your drawing, and that you don't have to switch back and forth between this other menu over here. So you're still in a drawing until you very deliberately switch back to that menu so that you don't accidentally waste all this time to switch back and forth between these two different modes. Also, one last thing to point out, and I've completely accidentally turned off the icons up here. If you remember, the version 25 icon bar up here had a lot more icons showing. They're now turned off. Standard up here, you can turn them back on. But since we have added such extensive contextual menus, you don't actually need all these icons up here, and you can release all this real estate on your screen to not just be wasted anymore for icons that you very likely don't use anymore. You can still turn them on, but this is now our standard reduced icon bar up here. Another type of contextual menu, it's not really a contextual menu, but another type of menu that I want to show you here, which can be very useful, is, let's say you had walls selected. I'm going to select 3 walls here, and I want to measure something. Well, if I right click now, you can't actually find that function in here, and we've introduced another menu which we call the control menu, and that I can access by right clicking the mouse. I'm going to hold it and then pull right until these 3 buttons appear. Now I'm going to let go of that, and you can now see that I have the control menu. You can see in here I can now measure. Control, I can jump into OpenGL, refresh global. I can also access the story and some of these functions right here, and also draw, go into layers, hide them, show them, and so forth. I'm going to go back out of that menu here for now and show you that there is another way to access that. So our standard way is to do it with the right mouse button and then pull right. I can also simply hold the shift button and then right click, and I'm going to access that same control menu as well. So one further thing I'll point out here, as I've mentioned before, but it's worth mentioning again, that if you go into your project administration in documents, you'll find a document called Using the Mouse in version 26. And I'm going to scroll down to the last page here. Here you can see all the different contextual menus that you can now access. The regular context menu when clicking on an object, the basic one, the control one that I just showed you, and the list of last commands. So how did we deal with results and our outputs now? Those have not been included in the contextual menu. Common method is to have them up here, and we also left them here under File, Results. You can see all the different outputs and results that we can generate from this program. That's all stayed in here. So because we rethought a lot of these contextual menus, a lot more possibilities opened up as to how we can manipulate things, and I'm going to show you another way that we can now use the contextual menu. I'm going to go over to a different project. So I now jumped over here into this little roof, and I'm going to demonstrate the bird's mouth function. As you can see here, there's no bird's mouth yet. You can see that there is no lines right there yet. We can also jump into a wireframe model to see that a bit better. Right here, you can see that there's no lines for your bird's mouth. So I'm going to demonstrate how to create this bird's mouth down here. I'm going to select these rafters here. Now right click, and then over here you can see in connection, I can go on to bird's mouth. Bird's mouth. And now I'm going to change over here edge to create bird's mouth width from automatic to choice. I'm going to demonstrate automatic in a second as well. I'm going to hit OK, and now I need to choose the other edge that the bird's mouth is going to be created with. I'm going to double click on here, right click to get out of the function, and you can now see that a bird's mouth has been created here. I can get out of the selection here by right click and pull to the left. That is going to deselect everything. And now you can see there is our bird's mouth. that was completely created using the contextual menu now. I want to show you now another way that you can also create those birds' mouths, and we're going to use the automatic function for that. I'm going to choose all the rafters and the plates at once. Now right click and go into the function bird's mouth. Previously we used this option here to choose which edge creates the bird's mouth. Now we're going to use the option automatic. Click OK. Now what is very important, and you'll see it described down here, is that the first component is the reference object of all the components that receives the bird's mouth. So in this case, I'm going to choose the rafter. I double click it to confirm. And now I need to choose another object that is going to create the bird's mouth. I'm going to choose this plate here, the double click to confirm. And you can see that all these bird's mouths have now been created. I'm going to quickly deselect so you can see this here. And you can see that all these bird's mouths at the top and the bottom have been created. The program essentially looked at the parallel objects to the ones that we selected and then figured out exactly where the bird's mouth was going to go. So that brings us to the end of this video. I wish you much success with the contextual menus, which should really speed up your work. I introduced you to the basic contextual menu, the one relating to objects, and also the control menu. And then lastly, also the list of your last commands. See you in the next video.